Hey, what's up everyone, it's your girl Brainy Shanae, and today I feel like I should do a Blackoweenathon / October reading check-in. I want to do check-ins probably on a weekly basis, especially since it's October and I have so many books on my radar that hasn't came out yet or that I still need to read before the year's over. So I feel like I need to do check-ins on a weekly basis. Just to remind myself like, oh, I need to read this, or that I want to read this before the year's out. So, but anyway, so far I read a total of 3 books. One book wasn't particularly on my Blackoweenathon TBR, but I wanted to read it anyway. And then there's 2 books that I read for Blackoweenathon. So the first book that I read for Blackoweenathon for my TBR was Razorblade Tears by S.A. Cosby. I gave this a 5 out of 5 stars because it was really good. I really loved the thriller part of it all. The main characters is Ike Randolph, and we have Buddy Lee, and they are both fathers of the 2 boys, or the 2 men that were killed, which is, you know, like I said, they're fathers. And they at first they were fathers that were disappointed in their sons because they were gay. They didn't believe in that. They felt like they failed as parents, as fathers, and they didn't really get to understand their sons before they were killed. And so and also, as you know, they also have a granddaughter named Ariana. I believe that's right. I believe it's Ariana. I always got them because I was listening to this on audiobook, so I kept hearing, oh, it's Ariana. But anyway, so they also have a granddaughter named Ariana, and Ike Randolph is also is now pretty much her has a guardianship over her. So she is pretty much in Ike's life, and even though Ike wasn't really involved in his son's life at all, because Ike is also an ex-con as well as Buddy Lee is an ex-con. And so they're both fathers are trying to see who killed their sons, why they killed their sons. So they were on this trail like cookie crumbs that they were looking for, and they were leading to who had killed their sons. But in the process, I was listening to this on audiobook, and how the men talked in their dialect and everything like that. It was hilarious. Like, even though I know they were serious, it was still really good. And also it comes into, it brings up the topics of black and white, and how Buddy Lee would make these racist jokes and racist comments. And Ike had to put it into light about it, saying, hey, don't do that, bro. Don't do that, man. Don't do that. And he was literally threatening him, like, don't do that, bro, for really, something might happen to you. So in this case, they are located in Virginia, and in a small town. And as they are trying to figure out who had killed their sons, they end up having interaction with the Breed, which is like a white supremacist gang, I would say. And they called Bleed for the Breed type of deal. That's what their quote was when they were pretty much repping for the gang. And so everything was leading up to that. And as they are trying to figure out who had killed their sons, Buddy Lee and Ike are still getting to know each other. And Ike even tells Buddy Lee about his experience as being black. And Buddy Lee was like, "Ooh, can I have your truck? Your truck looks nice." And the reason why Ike has all these nice things is because once he got out of prison, he started his own gardening company. So he is well established. Buddy Lee is not. He's still going from paycheck to paycheck. So he's living, and he lives in I believe he lives in a trailer, and he looks at Ike's life and he's like, oh my gosh, I want to be you. And Ike was like, you don't want my truck. Do you want to be pulled over multiple times on a regular basis? And Buddy Lee is like, what? Yeah. Do you want to be pulled over? Yeah, that's what it, and pretty much Ike was telling him that's what it feels like, and that's how it is being black and having nice things. So Buddy Lee was starting to get a gist of, you know, like, wow, I really said some racist shit. Like, I'm an asshole for that. And so Buddy Lee and Ike start coming together. Then Ike goes back into his story on how his nickname is Riot. They call him Riot because once he gets started, he doesn't stop. He cannot stop himself, and he just causes a riot with things. So he tried to change his life because after he got out, he missed so many years of his son's life. And he wanted to fix that. And then once he did get out of prison, his son came out saying he was gay, and he just did not like that at all. So their relationship was not great. And then you have Buddy Lee's son, who Buddy Lee didn't have a close relationship with him either, but he had a close relationship with Buddy Lee's ex-wife, and you know, a lot of things intertwined with each other. I give this I gave this 5 stars because there's so much happening. There's so much action. Like, you cannot, like, you definitely don't want to miss any single, you don't want to miss anything, because the book is very detailed, but it gets right to the point. It's not slow, it's fast paced, it's action packed. And then towards the end, when we find out who killed both of their sons, I'm like, wow. Like, Ike's son really had nothing to do with it. It was mostly Buddy Lee's son that started the chain reaction of both Buddy Lee's son and Ike's son getting killed. And then there's a lot of things about, I guess you say, religion and stuff like that, and how hypocrisy, and how some Christians, you know, are very, like, are hypocrites, right? There's just a lot going on, and I don't want to give it away. I do not want to spoil you guys, because I really want you to read this, because this is a wonderful, amazing thriller. And this is the first book that I have read by S.A. Cosby. So I'm planning on reading more of his work. This was so good. And just for the dads to realize what they were missing in their son's life, and how they could have done things differently, and actually looked at them like, you know what? I'm going to embrace you because you're my son. I'm going to love you regardless, you know? And I think, and you know, it was sad that they realized that at the very, you know, to the point where their sons were already killed. But I do think that, you know, they do have regrets, and the dads are going to have regrets on their actions that they did towards their sons. And also at the end, we notice certain things about Buddy Lee and his ex-wife and his ex-wife's husband, and his ex-wife's husband was part of the rare breed. You know, like, it's crazy. That's one spoiler. I'm not saying nothing else. But yes, definitely read this. 5 out of 5 stars, fast paced, love it, action packed. It had some hilarious things to it, but also some real shit to it as well that I really loved. So yeah, read this and loved it. And also, if you get the book, I highly suggest you get the audiobook, because you'll understand what I mean when I say how they talk, like how they were interacting with each other when it came to Ike Randolph and Buddy Lee. Like, they were hilarious when they were talking shit and stuff like that. It was hilarious. But yeah, love this book. Next book I had recently finished, and that is Virginia Hamilton's The House of Drears. This is a middle grade book. This happens to be located in Ohio, pretty much a town outside of Columbus and a little bit outside of Dayton, where we have a Black family from the South. They're moving up to the North because Mr. Smalls, who is they're the main character, Thomas, Mr. Small, Mrs. Smalls, and Thomas's little brothers, twin brothers, they all move to the north, and Thomas leaves his grandmother, wondering why we have to leave, you know. And the only reason why they moved up north is because Mr. Smalls got a job opportunity out of college, and he also, he pretty much is a historian. He knows everything about history, and he teaches his son stuff about history, and his son is intrigued with it. Also, I love this representation of the Black family. I'm like, wow, this is what I needed. Like, I love the representation of Black family in this, where you have literally the mom and dad are together, you know, they try to teach their son right and wrong and stuff like that, and they get him involved with, you know, history and stuff like that. And so when they moved to Ohio, they moved to a house that was part of the Underground Railroad, and an abolitionist used to live there called Drears. And he gets killed because, you know, he was helping slaves and helped them, you know, move from Ohio all the way to Canada. So they find this, they end up moving to this house, and you have Mr. Pluto, who pretty much is the caretaker of the house. And he was like, yeah, so you have Mr. Pluto, and he's very mysterious and stuff like that. And they say, and of course Thomas is like happy because he wants to figure out where are these tunnels, where is the little nicks and crannies where I can guess how they were able to get to the tunnels, where's the buttons, hidden stuff, is it behind this portrait, is it behind this mirror, stuff like that. And so with that, things started happening with their house. It got broken into, plates were broken, a lot of their refrigerator was emptied out. And so Mr. Small, Mrs. Small, and Thomas was trying to figure out who done this. And at first they thought it was Mr. Pluto because he was really weird and very protective over this house, and they didn't know why. But then you have the Darrow boys, who pretty much were trying to go into the house to find this so-called treasure, because there were things left during slavery, when the slaves were pretty much hidden in the tunnels, what they had left behind, stuff like that, jewels and tapestries and all that. And so as Mr. Small and Thomas try to figure out who was breaking into their house, who was causing all this drama with them, who was trying to force them out of their house right when they moved there, they wander into this cavern, and that's when they find Mr. Pluto and also Mayhew, who is Mr. Pluto's son. And literally when they walk into this cavern, there is jewels, there's tons of tapestries, there is books of history, everything like that within that cavern. And the whole reason why the Darrow brother, like I said, the Darrow boys was trying to get into their house was to get to that cavern, because they wanted all those, all the jewels, they wanted the riches. And so they're trying to figure out how to get the Darrow boys scared enough that way they do not come onto their land, they do not try to attack them or break into their house anymore. And so Mayhew, which is Mr. Pluto's son, he was personating him as his dad. He pretty much is an actor. So he was wearing stuff looking like his dad, with gray hair, gray beard, and everything like that, trying to scare people off. And he didn't realize he almost scared Thomas off. And he didn't know that he was one of the people that moved into the house. So throughout this book, we realized like the whole reason why the thing was happening to him, because there's these boys are trying to get these riches. And even Mr. Small says, we cannot keep this for ourselves. I will still log everything and put everything in order of what's in this cave, because it's going to take them years to figure out what's in the cavern. So with that, we get a lot of interaction between Mr. Small and Dr. Pluto and everything like that. And it has a lot of things with history as well, because they also talk about the crosses and how Mr. Small and Thomas were looking at these crosses that they were getting, and they thought it was Greek crosses, but it was actually made by conductors during slavery. And these crosses where they were put up on trees or anything like that to show them the way of either going north, south, east, or west. So it was giving them directions on where they needed to go. And Mr. Small did not know that, and that was something he learned, that he just learned. So 5 out of 5 stars for this one. Virginia Hamilton did an amazing job with this. Like I said, I definitely love the representation of the Black family in this book, and I definitely looking forward to reading the second book. I believe there's a next book for this, which I think in her notes she had said there's the second book, which I do want to read now. It's called The Mystery of Drear House, the conclusion of the Dyes Drear Chronicle. So yeah, I definitely plan on reading the second one, because this one was really, really good. I love the pace. It wasn't really that long. It was like 244 pages. So it really wasn't that bad, but a 5 out of 5 stars for this book as well. Then last but not least, the third book that I read, and now that I think about it, I feel like I'm behind on my TBR. I feel like I'm going to be starting The Confessions of Franny Langston by Sarah Collins, probably tomorrow or today. I'm not sure. I know I have to also read Dead Girls, and I also have to read Hide and Seeker. So I have 3 more books from my Blackoweenathon TBR, but I also have some other books I want to get to this month as well, like The Obelisk Gate by N.K. Jemisin, because I'll be doing a live with Bethany from Beautifully Bookish Bethany on her channel on the 29th of this month of October. So yeah, so I'm also going to be reading that as well. So I'm thinking that I'll probably listen to The Obelisk Gate by N.K. Jemisin on audiobook, and then I'll also be reading The Confessions of Franny Langston. And literally just found out that this is going to be like the Confessions of Franny Langston is going to be adapted. I think it's going to be a TV series, I believe. So I'm really excited about that. And of course, The Confessions of Franny Langston is one of our group reads. So I'm looking forward to reading that. I even got my tabs for the book for the conversation and everything, because I'm definitely looking forward to reading it, which I cannot wait to. I might just read it tonight. Who knows? I know I probably won't sleep, so I probably will read that. And then, so anyways, sorry about my rambling. So the next book that I read was So Many Beginnings, a Little Women remix by Bethany C. Morrow. Like, this is a Little Women's remix. It's not a retelling. And we follow pretty much follow Mammy, we follow Meg, we follow Bethlehem, which they call Beth, we follow Joe, and we also follow Amy, who is Amethyst. And so in this book, these women, all of these women were slaves, and when you read this book, they say their old life. Their old life means they were slaves, and then as the Civil War began, they became to be free people, even though they realized they weren't really free yet. They weren't emancipated or nothing, but they were, a lot of their men were recruited to fight in the war. And their dad, who, Alcott, I believe that's his name, Alcott, is in Mississippi, and he, instead of coming back after he said after 2 weeks he would come back to Roanoke Island, which is where they the colony is, or where they live, he decides to go to war. So they know he's battling for them, for their freedom and stuff like that. And then on top of that, we have Meg. Meg is the oldest, and she's trying to figure out, am I a woman? Like, how come I can't attract men? And then we have Joseph Williams that comes into the picture. And I guess Meg was trying to figure out how come he doesn't like her. Like, she thought he did. But then he said, no, I'm just here to recruit, you know, for the colonies and stuff like that. And they realized, like, you're trying to take all of our men when we're trying to build houses and build homes and establish civilization for the free people. And Joseph was just trying to do his duties, and next thing you know, he said, you know what, Meg, can I write to you? And so as he's writing to Meg, he's really writing stuff about the battle and the war and stuff like that. And Meg's like, that's not what I want to read, what I want to hear. I want to hear about you missing me and stuff like that. So Meg is really down and just doesn't know why she can't attract men. And then here comes Joe, who in the book at the beginning, when they were slaves, their slave owners thought that Joe was mute for some reason. Like, she didn't talk or nothing. And you know, like, during slavery, I wouldn't want to talk either, because who knows what comes out of my mouth you don't like, and then you end up punishing me or my family, you know, like. And so they thought she was mute, but she really wasn't. And so she writes all these books, or not books, but she writes these letters and stuff. Next thing you know, she's writing a newsletter for the Roanoke Island, their establishment where they live. And she talks about, you know, the importance of trying to be, being free, to establish freedom, you know, and still realize that freedom isn't free. And, you know, the war and their colony, what's going on, everything like that. And just putting her words, you know, what she feels like and her truth of what's going on, her reality. And so with that, Joe meets Lauren, for short, Lori. And so Meg gets jealous because she's like, how come Joe can easily attract men, but I can't? What's wrong with me? You know, so Meg is a little bit jealous of Joe, and even Joe calls Lori hers. The thing with Joe doesn't want to be married. She doesn't really want to consider a relationship, and she tells that to Lori, and Lori has an understanding about that. Like I said, Joe doesn't want a relationship, but she wants to keep Lori close to her, wants just close to her wherever she goes. And then we have Bethlehem, who's come down, she's become really ill, and the missionaries, you know, they're white women. They come in, they don't know what's wrong with Bethlehem and stuff like that, until her father suggests, like, it's a sickness from the Black continent, Africa. So they don't really have any a resolution for it. They don't really have a cure for it. It just, you know, she's just going to have to live with it for the rest of her life until there's something that she can do or take. So we have that. And then we have Amethyst, who is a little girl, not a little girl, but she's not really, like, she's adopted per se. Like, she's not really, she wasn't born from Miss March. She wasn't. But they pretty much, when they adopted her, she was very young. All the girls were very young. So they're like, that's our sister. Amy's our sister. Amethyst is our sister. And Amethyst is very curious about a lot of things, wants to get in everybody's business, of course. And then one day, one of the women, they're white, I forget her name off top of my head. They tell her, like, you should go to Boston, and because Amethyst is a very good dancer and stuff like that. And Miss March was like, no, why would I take her to Boston? We don't know how it is for Black people in Boston. You shouldn't be taking my daughter away from me after we just came out of slavery. And she's like, it's not like that. So I'm like, I could attend to her. I could be with her and escort her. And that's when Joe was like, no, I will escort her there. And that's when Lori jumps in and said, you know what, I will do the same thing. We will all go to Boston. And of course we still have Meg and Bethlehem still at Roanoke Island. But as Beth is still trying to figure things out, she's great at what she does, as creating stuff with her hands, dresses, clothing, everything like that. And next thing you know, she gets this opportunity of having her own shop in Liberia, which that's where she goes. She leaves Roanoke Island. And then we have Meg, who meets Wisdom Carter at a party, which is at their place where they used to live when they were slaves. So the big house. And they were very uncomfortable about going, but they said they should, you know, to have an event because somebody's getting married and what have you. And so Wisdom is starting to get a feel for Meg, and that's when they start to have a relationship together. And then as Joe and Amy are in Boston along with Lori, Joe has the opportunity to write her own book, but the publisher, who is, you know, the woman that is owner of the publisher, she's white, she's telling her, no, you need to write it in your own intellect. In your own intellect, you know, it doesn't sound real. You know, slaves don't talk like that. And Joanna was like, what? Yes, we do. We talk exactly like this. Just because I talk like very sophisticated, that you think like that's not how we talk? Like what? So Joanna was like, you know what? I'm not doing this. I'm gonna go through somebody else, and I'm still gonna write my story. I'm not going to change up nothing just because you feel like the dialect isn't correct. What? I got so pissed in that part. I'm like, whoa, seriously? Like, how is she supposed to talk? She's like, talk like what? Like, what are you trying to expect? You know, like, I don't understand. That was just crazy. But Joanna gave her, you know what? Nah, I'm gonna write my story somewhere else. Somewhere else, somebody else will be willing to read my story and not have it altered just because you feel like that's not how it's supposed to be written and that's not how slaves talked or spoken. You know, spoke. Like, come on. Yeah. So Joanna just went off on the white lady. She's like, you're missing this opportunity. All you have to do is just change. No, I'm not changing one damn thing. So we have that. So with that, I really love that. And then on top of that, we see Joseph Williams, who Meg thought was going to be her boo. And Joseph actually was enthralled with Amy. And Amy was like, you know what? I'm not looking for no marriage right now. I want to still live my life, maybe later on down the line. And Joseph was fine with that. And then, of course, we have Mr. March come back from Mississippi. He survived the battle. They survived the war. So they were able to see their father again. But the whole point of this is like so many beginnings is because each of the sisters have their own beginning. You have Meg, who is married to Wisdom, so they're going to start their own life. Then you have Bethlehem, who is now in Liberia, has her own shop, her clothing shop. You have Joanna, who's going to be an author. You have Amy, who's a great dancer in Boston. So they've all gone their separate ways and are living their lives the best as they can, especially after being enslaved for so many years. So I gave this book a 5 out of 5 stars because it was really, really well written. I love everything about this. Bethany C. Morrow is a very good author. She even told us because there was a live event for Macmillan for her book, and she said this is not a retelling. Nobody say it's a retelling. It's definitely a remix. It's nothing retelling about it. There's already so many Little Women retellings out there. This is definitely completely different. Now I do get it, as you read this, it does seem like a retelling, but I'm going to respect Bethany C. Morrow's wishes and saying it is a remix because it's a remix. It's completely different from the other Little Women retellings and stuff like that. So I gave it a 5 out of 5 stars. I really enjoyed it. I loved everything about it, especially with Roanoke Island and stuff like that. I found that very interesting. And of course, this is happening in the year 1863. But yeah, sorry, I'm a little bit out of breath. But yeah, so these are the 3 books I have read so far in October. These are the 2 books I've read so far for Blackoweenathon, and this is the book that I wanted to read because I've had it since last month, and I'm like, I need to read this. So yeah. That is my weekly check-in so far for this month. Last week, I don't know what was going on. I should have had these three books done, but you know, life happens. You know, things come up unexpectedly. So I'm you know what? I'm happy that I've already read 3 books. Now I have like 4 more books to go, but I'm sure I'll be able to get it done. Just stick to my plans on how I'm going to read and listen to audiobook, so that way I can get through the books that I want to read faster. But that is my weekly check-in for Blackoweenathon and for October. I will definitely be back next week to give you my update on what I read or what I finished. Hopefully I have finished everything. But yeah, so that is all. I really hope you enjoyed this check-in. I definitely, like I said, I plan on doing more throughout this year, just to keep track of everything and make sure that everything that I've read, that I want to read, I'm going to be reading. But yes, I really hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please, please, please give me a thumbs up. Also hit that subscribe button, that bell to be notified when I upload more videos. But thank you so much for watching, you guys, and please stay healthy and stay safe. See ya.